Welcome to the For the Love podcast. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here, and I think you will be too, because we're having a conversation that feels timely, right? I'll get to it, but we're discussing a book called In the Low, L-O-W, and if ever a moment has felt kind of low, it's right now, just collectively. Like culturally, subculturally, we are just, I don't even know. I'm in my head about it so much that it's like on a constant poisonous loop in my brain of what terrible thing is going wrong today.
Right. And the book specifically is talking about depression. Mm-hmm. Being in that low, but I feel like we're all being pushed down right now. Like even if you don't struggle with clinical depression,
right?
We are all having terrible days. At least part of our day, every day. And it's the weight of all of it. It's not just the weight of what's actually happening, but it's the weight of the amount of information.
Yeah.
Just drowning us.
God, it's so true.
And, a lot of times we talk about it being a fire hose, which visually I just feel like, I'm being blasted.
Yeah.
But also the pool is filling up.
It really is.
With the amount of information coming at us, and most of it is bad.
It is.
So I really do feel like the actual weight of all of that just shoving me down into the dirt.
Exact same way. And I think that's why we are looking forward to putting this in your hands, this conversation in front of you, but also this incredible book. We've got two really talented, gifted, thoughtful creators and friends of mine on the show today. We've got Scott Erickson and Justin McRoberts. So you may know Scott. Scott's been on the show before. We had him on last year, right?
Mm-hmm. For his Advent book, I think.
Yeah, for Advent book. That's right. Last December. Scott, and like his moniker online is Scott the Painter, if that helps you like locate him in socials. So you probably know him from his really beautiful visual art. And then if you came to any of the Moxie Matters tour, which we're in for 3 different seasons in 2017 and 2018, when I was on tour with Nicole Nordeman, you might remember Justin McRoberts. He brought music to one whole leg of that tour. And it was just this grounding and soulful part of that entire experience. And we became friends and collaborators from that point on. And so together they have this really interesting creative partnership that we're going to talk about. But together they have made something new again, something truly beautiful and important. And it is this book where they have combined their beautiful, like writing poetry and prayers with Scott's art. And it's called In the Low, a prayer book for the seasons of depression. I don't check out. Like if you're just thinking, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with me, or I don't know, that sounds trite, or you've got into your heads one of those like devotional books in an airport kiosk. Like that's not what this is.
No, not at all.
This is deep waters and really like beautiful creative expressions, and nothing about this is trite or Christianese or anything that maybe just ran through your brain when I described it. This is really an invitation to be really still with what actually hurts. Justin said something later on in the interview where he was talking to a friend who was struggling, and he was like, "You're not wrong, because life is hard and it does actually hurt, and no one's overreacting." And so to be still in that space, to still be able to find God, to find yourself, and even to find hope way, way down at the bottom, in the low, if you will. So it's poetry, prayer, honesty, art. If you've ever found yourself in a season that was super dark, super quiet, unbearably heavy, this conversation and this book is for you. And so, without any further ado, we are delighted to welcome Scott and Justin to the show. Guys, welcome. Scott, welcome back. Delighted to see you again, per usual. And Justin, welcome back to just being in my face again. Yes, thank you. We were just doing the tour math before we started, and Justin and I were on the Moxie tour with Nicole Nordeman in 2017. And I do wonder if you would be willing to just share the shining moment that we just remembered together from that. Well, I mean, let's give the people what they want,
Let's give the people one. So
Yeah.
there was, I will say, it was overall really a very nice, very functional tour bus that didn't have any problems whatsoever.
Sure.
Until I think we were in Santa Ana,
That feels right.
and I needed to use the restroom, and instead of using the restroom inside, I went and used the restroom on the bus, which 9 times out of 10 is a bad move to make that choice.
For other reasons.
And the next,
Yeah.
for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And the next thing Pepper knows is his phone is blowing up
Yeah.
as I'm calling him from the bathroom in the back of the bus because I cannot get out.
Yeah. And everybody, the
And-
doors are sliders and they have auto locks. So
I am auto locked in the bathroom.
Yes.
The window is not large enough for me to crawl. I'm thinking how much will it cost to fix this thing if I break out?
That's right. And don't forget, listeners, the show is starting. We're inside. We've got
It's 7:30.
We've got
and I'm
2,000
supposed to be
people
on
or
stage with
whatever
the guitar.
in the room. And
Amazing.
yeah, and
And I'm in the
Justin's supposed to be on, and he's in the toilet. And we're like, what are we going to do? And instead of, Justin just reminded us, instead of getting really serious about problem solving, what we all did was die laughing. How could this be happening that Justin is locked in the bathroom?
No,
on the
I
tour
shit you
bus?
not. I shit you not. I think Pepper probably told 3 or 4 people before he sent someone to help.
That feels right. And I'm pretty sure we probably told the story straight from stage. Everybody, thanks for coming tonight. Just so you know what just happened.
Here's how we're coming in.
Yeah, absolutely no chill.
Don't know how you guys are. This is how we're doing. As
That's
a tour.
right. That's right.
Oh,
That's
man.
right. We're a professional tour, as you can see.
it was
Anyway,
quite a thing.
I'm just delighted to see you again. And after all these years, also the both of you. So this is fun because for people listening that don't know your history or this incredible creative collaboration that you guys have built, can you talk first of all about how this partnership between the two of you began, and how your friendship started, and even how it's kind of evolved throughout your projects?
We both, I did it for a decade and Justin still partakes in it. There's a college student conference in Pittsburgh called Jubilee. And I was the live painter for a decade, and Justin's always done seminars and teachings there. And I think I did 5 or 6 before we actually started talking, because there's a lot of people there. But we actually have a photo of our first time talking up in the suite where everybody would hang out, and I think it was the next year. Justin was like, "Hey, I have these 1-sentence prayers I've written. I think it'd be really interesting if you partnered with an image with it." And then we were both at something in LA, I think the Justice Festival or something like that. And then we talked about it. And so we started working on this idea. This happens a lot. I'm sure this happens to you too, where people are I want to get into publishing. And I'm okay, when I started, I self-published. And this is not at a time when self-publishing was really
Totally.
easy like it is now. Justin and I did a Kickstarter because nothing like what the prayer book we had done had been kind of made. And so I don't think we had no, I don't know, we had what is it? No stake in the game. We had no clout. So we just made the thing that we wanted to see in the world. We did a Kickstarter. We We printed our own books. We did this a number of times, kept hawking it at everything we did for like 3 years until we had sold around like 10,000 copies on our own. And then I ran into a friend who's a supporter of my work, a best-selling author, and he was like, just go to a publisher and tell them you sold 10,000 books on your own. They'll give you a book deal.
Yeah.
And then that was our second book. We kind of bundled it in together. And then so that was a number of years ago. And then we both kind of had our own, Justin's done like 3 or 4 more books. I've done 2, which last time I was here, I was talking about Honest Advent. And then it was a couple years ago, we were just like chatting, and Justin's like, you got anything that you're like working on? And I said, well, I noticed when I'm in my seasons of depression that I've been collecting prayers. I've been writing prayers, making images, I collect things. And he's like, bro, I do the same thing. I was like, I have like half a book. And he's like, I have that too. And so that was like, oh, all right. I think we have something to talk about together again.
Yeah.
In the way of giving a prayer resource to this season, this time in your life that's really difficult, and is also, there's a question of like, is my spirituality going away? Is my spirituality not working anymore?
Yeah, totally.
How do I offer what is being offered in these places that's not like a get out of here quick or a shallow spirituality? But because I think it's true. I mean, women and men throughout history have gone through. We're not the only ones who've ever been depressed, and there's some great things that have been made. But again, every generation, every artist is like, well, what can I contribute now to this conversation? So that's kind of how it came together.
Amazing.
You describe In the Low, which just even the cover, so beautiful.
And Scott's stuff is just so recognizable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A million.
Oh,
You describe
guys.
it as a spiritual companion through the season of depression. How is this different than the resources you've used before and other things out there?
It's different from the things we've made before insofar as it's really, really specific. The first 2 books were a little bit more general. We really wanted to kind of reorient as best we could, reorient people's relationship to the practice of prayer. This, I don't even know if I want to say it's more personal, but it comes from that really specifically dark place that like, this is something that I wanted to say something when we were doing the prayers for the first 2 books. This was like, this is a thing I've needed. These are that comes from a deeper place of need for me. So maybe in that way it's more personal. And the thing that I think makes this a little bit different, and there are other folks doing similar work, is in the same way that we were trying to reorient or help people reorient their relationship to prayer, we really want to help people reorient their relationship to their own low, to their own depression, to their like darker, heavier feelings. And so the word you just used, I mean, the companion, I don't want to fix it. I don't want to tell you how to get out of it. I don't want to tell you how to avoid it. I want to tell you to stay, and I want to tell you that we'll stay with you. And so we wanted to write something. We wanted to put something together that gave permission and presence. The folks could be where you are when you're in the low and stay there as long as it needs you to be there. These are the resources that I've needed, and I've found in little like nooks and crannies, but nothing as kind of collected and pointed as this.
Yeah, it is funny when you you make a book that I use my own book.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Like I've written things and I don't read my material. It's like I don't come back, but I like have this with me.
It's
and
your
I'm like
resource.
often like, oh, I need this today. Yeah, it's funny to make something that it's not, I mean, all kind of creativity is making something that you need, but to not be over it. And I will say too, I know you weren't saying this, Justin, but when we're saying we're not trying to get you out of it, because your body, psyche, soul is saying, hey, something needs to change. Hey, something isn't working. You don't want to be this character anymore. You don't want to play this game anymore. And this is us. This is yourself letting you know that you're starting in a process of change. And why, because I think some people hear like, I don't want to stay in this awful place. It's like, yeah, nobody really does, but it's getting your attention and leading you in a process. And I think that's when in our conversations, when depression eventually would lift in my life, I noticed that I'd be like, but where did this fruit come from? Where did this treasure come from that long? I had like one bout was like a year long. And I was like, where did this spiritual fruit come from? It came through going through this process. And so that's what we're like pointing to, is like, you might feel void of it. Like when you're in it, you're just trying to get through it or just be in it or be functional every day. But there is something happening. And so that's what we're trying to be a companion to. Yeah. And I think that's in our training as spiritual directors, and being like, a spiritual director is never solving anything, is mostly asking questions. So we're kind of trying to bring that presence into the material. Yeah.
Both of you write about depression with a lot of tenderness, obviously with a lot of personal knowledge. I wonder if you would be willing to talk a little bit, both of you, about your experience of being in the low, as you have called it, and kind of your personal walk through depression, which is really, I think, useful for listeners and readers to know, that you're not throwing, jargon at somebody's depression, but this is coming from your hearts.
Yeah. A lot of my history with depression is tied to living with ADHD. So there's that sort of perpetual link between ADHD cycles and particularly the highs and the bounce back. And that's not something I was conscious of until deeper into life. But when I look back from where I am now, I recognize these like really, really hard moments, these like long darks that were, earlier in my life. The pivot point for me was losing my father to depression. My dad grew up with depression, was depressed off and on. I didn't know it when I was 12 or 13. And my dad ended his own life at 55. I'm 52 now. And it shocked me into a deeper examination of the things that were happening in me. In other words, like, this is a thing that's kind of just going on. I would not like be dismissive of it, but I wouldn't attend to it. But losing my dad that way, shocked me into like, what of that is true in here. And started taking far more seriously. And thankfully was surrounded by people who told me in similar ways as we're doing with the book, like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not like a bad thing. This is hard. But learn this thing about you. So having therapist friends and having spiritual directors. So it's similar to my father. I attached myself to a job that was very meaningful to me. When I lost that job, I entered into a really, really long, hard, I write about it in the book, very, very hard depression. And in that time, did the thing, which is I was collecting things that were just helpful. Like, I'm going to be here for a while. And if I'm going to be here for a while, how do I stay? How do I develop a language that makes me feel a little less lonely as I'm feeling lonely? Those are the things that pop to mind when you ask the question.
Thanks, Scott.
My last meeting with my spiritual director, he said, "Oh, you're a sad Christian."
Jeez. Oh God.
We've met for 7 years. It was great. We're good friends. I mean, I am an Enneagram 4. If people know what that means, which just the most likely to kill themselves. No, I am. I'm a big feeler, and it has taken me my whole life up until now to understand that I will feel all the emotions every day, and I feel things really deeply, and and there's just kind of an emotion, it's really helpful in being a performer and a communicator and an artist in that way. But then one of the things I became most aware of is actually when I came back from a trip, I noticed that the day I came back, I was tired. The next day I was tired. The next day I would get low. And it took me a while to like figure out, to be like, why do I think my career is complete shit today? Like I just came back from a job, and I realized, so this is like, there's so many different causes for depression. So this is specifically with like the output of creativity and being social and traveling, which is still a miracle to me, is that my body was like recentering, and I just found that like my mind was very unhelpful that day. And so I started setting some like limitations or rules around that day, which I was like, you don't get to judge how your career is going. You don't get to make future plans today. Like I just gave myself a day off from those things. And then I would go on a walk, or I'd swim some laps, I'd eat some good food. I try to talk with a friend or my wife, and or just watch something, listen to good music. It's like there's wisdom in my body. My mind today is not helping. And that kind of allowed me to go, oh, okay, so there's sometimes where I just like dip in the low, and I need to find another kind of intelligence or another kind of wisdom that's not in my thinking brain.
That's good.
And then I burning out from a job, heartbreak, there's all kinds of things of why we kind of descend into a lower place. I mean, I think it's helpful just to have it like mythically, metaphorically going, sometimes what happens in a human life is something will happen to you that you're not in charge of. And that brings you into this kind of low place. The imagery in medieval times is like you descend into the underworld, and your arms are cut off, your head's cut off, you're thrown in a vat, you're boiled down to nothing, like you totally dissolve. And so Parker Palmer would say, what is dissolved is your illusions of who you think you are and how you think the world works. And yet this is a process of kind of that we all kind of go through. And so I've had vocational depression, I've had relational depression, I've had just like physical, I'm just really tired, and I'm reorienting to flying on planes and rental cars and talking to hundreds of people, and just outputting, and I need to readjust. And so it's in that knowing myself, I'm like, the low has not become like a place. This is kind of where we're getting to, is like you're not in the low because you're broken. You're in the low because you're human. It's part of this kind of human experience. And so then what kind of practices and spirituality do we have when we find ourselves in those spaces? That's kind of,
Me too.
Yeah. The structure of the book is so helpful, especially if you're in the low. You start each section with the same welcoming prayer. You repeat it over and over in the book. And then you have 5 sort of movements of reconnecting, because being disconnected is sort of the through line of going into the low. Some of them are reconnecting to where I am today, what happened to me, what am I a part of now? Can you talk about how you decided to structure it this way, and also a little bit about the welcoming prayer that you start each section with?
Justin, how about you take welcoming prayer and then I'll take structure? Can we do that?
Great.
That fine. I'll start with structure because it's there's a author named Johann Hari. One of my favorite and most helpful books about depression was a book called Lost Connection. And in his research, he proposes that there are 9 disconnections that are the roots of depression. 2 of which are biological, but 7 are environmental, something happening to your life, and which is counter to a lot of the narratives we've received, which is you're depressed because your brain chemistry is off. And he's like, that's not entirely true. That's mostly a narrative propagated by big pharma.
Interesting.
the author Matt Haig would say it's less about what's happening to you or like what's happening in your head, and more what is your head in, like what's going on in your life, what's happened to
That was
you.
true
And
for me.
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So some of the things that Johan Hari proposes is like a disconnection from a hopeful future, a disconnection from meaningful relationships, a disconnection from your own intrinsic values that you've kind of like sacrificed, and your soul is like, I don't like this, like, and so these kinds of things. And so when we started talking, I was like, I think it's really important to take this research and have that affect the spiritual companion we're going to make, and then when we made all of our prayers and we kind of started piecing them together, I was like, oh, this book is about reconnecting. It's not about disconnection. It's about reconnecting. And so then we kind of formatted with these disconnections, and these prayers were for reconnecting. So it was like a weird kind of math problem to go from 9 to 5 and put it all together. But as the path provided, and we figured it out. And then Justin brought in this like centering prayer to kind of be the thread through it.
In addition to sectioning the book out into different movements of reconnection, you also have this welcoming prayer, both at the beginning and then at the start of every single section, to sort of tie it all together.
Yes.
Where did that prayer come from, and why did you decide to keep repeating it throughout the book?
I was going to first say that one of the things that Scott's great at is synthesizing and reorganizing information. And so when after we had read the Johan Hari book, he spent a lot of time figuring out how to implement the way he had, because it was so helpful. And instead of reinventing the wheel and like, how do we structure our book differently? It was like, well, this guy's done this incredible work. And so moving from disconnection to reconnection, making this more of a tool than like a research piece. And insofar as it's a tool, how can it be like actually helpful? Again, one of the things I continued to find helpful was this prayer by Miriam Rosowski. I'll read the prayer so the folks understand where it's coming from. She writes, it's just beautiful. It says, welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it is for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, all feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and God's action within. Amen.
Oh, so beautiful.
And what the prayer has done for me, and what I wanted to try, and this is a thing I practice constantly, because like Scott, maybe not in the same way, like I'm a big old feeler. I feel everything, like everything hits and it sticks. And I don't want to call myself a control freak. I think that's too easy, but I do get really attached to certain outcomes. I want good things to happen for me and for other people around me. And what the prayer does for me is it puts me in it reorients my relationship to the activity of God in my life. That the kindest thing I can do at times is to let go of even my best efforts and even my best hopes, because I become attached to these really particular things. Yeah. And if I'm going to be in the low, part of what will distract me, or what'll make me want to leave, is like, these are the particular things that I want and I'm not getting them. Instead, can I say, okay, I don't need to welcome like the shitty thing that happened this week or the terrible things going on, but I do need to welcome the feelings that I'm having about them.
It's good,
because this is part of how I become whole. I become whole by saying that sucked, and I want to be away from that thing that sucked. But I can't be away from the way I feel about what happened. I have to live here and let that be part of who I am, and let that be part of what God holds together, if God's actually holding together my whole life. And so, because it's a prayer that I repeat specifically when things are heavy or dark, we implemented that as a regular practice throughout the book, as a thread that held the whole thing together.
Yeah, I love that structure. I'd like to hear you talk about, both of you, your process for writing these prayers, because they're so tender and they're so gentle and they're also so visceral. I'd love to hear, and you may have two completely different answers, how you write these prayers that are so honest, so much truth telling, but they're very, very embodied. What that creative process looks like for you.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think when you're, I was talking with a friend she's like, I think I'm an artist. And I was like, great. I was like, really being an artist is something you name yourself. And then you just say, I'm dedicated to a practice. So I think when you're dedicated to a practice, whatever you're in, there's a part of you that's like, okay, well, how would I describe what I'm going through? You're like, you're in it, your life, but you're also like taking notes for future projects. So, I think when we knew we were going to start putting this together, when I would find myself in kind of low places, or just I would kind of sidestep and go, what does this feel like? What kind of things also does this like relate to? And because I'm also thinking of images, I'm like, how would I visualize what I'm going through, what I feel like right now? And then also I think, what would be a kind and comforting thing to myself in this moment? And and then it's just kind of like little notes and snippets. I mean, I have a series of different sized writing journals on me at all times, from like a little pocket notebook to a more of a general journal, to in my bag as a sketchbook that I'm, so I have all kind of three things. So you're collecting, and then maybe when you're back at a spot where you're a little bit better, or in a place of formatting it, you're kind of then work tinkering with those words and things. But it really is kind of like in that vulnerable, personal, kind of sensitive place. It is like, how would I care for, if it's not me, just like, how would I care for somebody who's like this? And what would I say to them? What am I looking for? And that's like the beginning pieces to it. I think also just reading other authors and read poets and writers who have done that work before. And so then you start getting like, oh, this is helpful to say this, or this is what I'm looking for. That's that kind of thing.
I love that. How about you?
Yeah, I'm constantly collecting, like I'm picking things up. Like it's a thought, it's something someone else said, and I'll grab the quote, or it often happens like if I'm out and I'm I'm jogging, or I'm just in my body, and I'll have these moments of clarity. So I have to kind of capture. I rarely sit down and decide, here's a thing I'm going to write. And so like, I'm going to drop 5,000 words today and I don't know where it's going. I'm almost always beginning from things I've collected that they've come up, or they've been helpful. And I love the way Scott said it. Like what are the comforting words I need for today? And how can my conscious mind provide something for my subconscious and my soul? And so, like I'm having these feelings, or these responses to all this stimulus. I need something to hold on to. So how can my conscious mind provide some handles for me for this day, for this week, for this moment? And then I look up after a while and I'm like, oh, there's a thread that runs through the last 4 years, or these things might fit together well.
Yeah. Incredible.
There's a line in the book that says, I may be in the low, but I am not the low, which really stopped me in my tracks. It's just a different way of looking at it. And it's been said 100 different ways, but I actually read this book when I was on a camping trip in the Davis Mountains, which that's where the observatory is, UT's observatory, like dark skies. And so I just sat like in the woods and read this book all week. But what I found since then is I connect so much with the pictures, with the drawings. So I find myself like thumbing through it and not looking at the words, only looking at the pictures, and then stopping when I see one that describes how I feel, and then I go over to the next page and read the words. How Can you expand on your idea of I'm in the low, but I'm not the low
Yeah.
for someone who's in the middle of their own darkness right now?
That's Scott's poem.
That's mine.
Uh,
It
It's good.
Yeah, I think I'm maybe getting confused because I think there's a couple. I know the one you're talking about where I do the series of like, I'm this, I may be in this, but I'm not this. I may be in this, I'm not this. And so I may be in the low, but I'm not the low. And that comes back to, I even think it's in our vocabulary for, in a greater sense, we just say, well, I'm depressed
Yeah.
versus I'm in depression. That's so we're trying to move away from this identity.
good.
I think it's okay to say I'm happy, I'm depressed, I'm sad. These are emotions or things that it's just our language is helping describe what it's like to be us in this interior world as I'm walking through this thing. I'm also live in the Northwest, so I'm wet, because I can say that too, because it was raining. It's raining
that's fair.
all day today. So yeah, I think but there's such a depression or grief or anxiety are so, they're just like this weighted blanket that just wants to say, this is what everything is. Everything is this, and I am this now. I remember this one season when I was, it was kind of my longest season of depression. I remember like running into a friend unexpectedly, and it turned out to be just like a delightful lunch with them or something. And I was like, man, that was such a gift. It really lifted me out of it. And I remember the next day I woke up and I said, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do today. And I just felt like a voice said to me, well, what if there's a gift today? Would you get up for a gift? And I love gifts. And I was like, yeah, I'd get up. And there turns out there was, in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And I did that the next day. And the long story short is there can be a gift every day if you want to see it.
Yeah.
And those kind of
love
help
that.
me emerge from this place. And I think that's where what I'm speaking to is like, I'm definitely in something, but I'm not that, because I can because I can be in it and I can be out of it. And one day I will be out of it. And so that's not the thread of who I'm not that. I'm just in these places. And then if we partner that with the welcoming prayer, it's like, so this is, what if I assume that this is part of my healing? Or what if I said, maybe I'm here because there's a part of me that wants to get my attention. And so I need to be in here. That's kind of where I'm
I
coming
love
from.
that. I know both of you and both of your stories, and you have each, and so have we, come from faith spaces that aren't necessarily conducive to any of this work. My faith environment was uncomfortable with lament, uncomfortable with uncertainty and questions. Hell, uncomfortable with depression. I mean, if we just want to get like right on the nose, like these were not practices or spaces or ways of being in the world that you guys grew up in, or us, that felt really, I don't think we were taught how to move through these emotions and moments and seasons of life. And so I'd like to hear each of you actually talk about what you have learned throughout the years to move from spaces, and I'm painting with a wide brush. I know that. I'm destroying nuance here, but from spaces that were more rigid, more certain, less mysterious, just less room for humanity, frankly. To where you are now, and if there's been a cost to that migration.
One of the stories in the book, and I alluded to it a little while ago, was maybe I'll start at 40,000 feet. I say things, and some days it's strictly sentiment, and sometimes I mean it more deeply. And if God is always better than the machines we make for God.
Yes.
And like always. And so if I think I know that more deeply as I've become more and more disappointed in the machines. that we've made for God, and I can both I can appreciate the effort, and as someone who's built plenty of machines for
Same.
God, hey, I appreciate that effort, and I can see it for more for what it actually is, more for the worth it actually has. In the deepest point of that disappointment was like being a pastor for 17 years. When I was being trained, I think you and I might have talked about this at one point on the tour, that like the person doing my training straight up said, if you decide to call yourself a pastor, you'll never just be another person in the room. It'll change your nature. It changed the nature of your relationship with everyone.
Yeah.
And what he was saying at the time had nothing to do with who I was as a Christian, who I was as a human, or who I was as a beloved one of God. It had to do with my relationship to the machine that needed me to be a certain kind of person in order to belong to it.
Relatable.
And yeah, I think like I said, I think you and I talked about this because we talked about the word pastor and what it means and the smallness of it. I'm thankful for the disappointments that I've had in church, in religious culture, because it gives me, I now have, through that low, a grander perspective for what God is, who God is, how that works, what I know, what I don't have to know. And then I can appreciate the efforts people put forward in actually making those machines. I've got some more compassion for folks. Like, they're trying.
Yeah.
You're trying.
Yeah.
You're not qualified for the job you have.
Sure.
Hell, I don't know I don't know who the hell is. And the expectations put on the cats running these things, like, dude,
I know.
it's gonna beat the shit out of you and
I
then
feel the
spit
same
you out.
way.
And so it was important for Scott and I both to couch this effort in religious language.
Yeah.
So that instead of saying this on the whole, whatever we want to identify this particular machine as, is just corrupt, just bad, you need to get away from it. Well, there's been a gift in here somewhere that a lot of these folks are chasing, and let's provide a tool that helps you dig around in it.
That's very generous.
To find the gift.
What about you, Scott? I'd just like to hear your thought on that too.
I think I'm more emotional than Justin. I just want to say that. So
That's okay.
I often reach out to him and I'm like, not great. And there was what he just referenced. He gave me some, because I called him and I was just like, I'm so heartbroken at all the snake oil salesmen, all the just hypocrites and misogynists and racists that I find in the tradition that the occupation I've been in. And I just am like so disappointed and I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, do you have any advice? And he goes, yeah, I've been a disappointment to others too.
Oh, Justin.
it was he's not a racist or a homophobe. He might be a snake oil salesman.
We don't know. Verdict's out.
But it is an invitation to go, for sure. And those things need to be called out, and people are in places they shouldn't be. But like, what is the part of this that there's this expectation to be something that I'm not? And I can sidestep that a lot because I'm kind of a weird anomaly of being an artist, and so I can be like, oh, I don't work at a church, I just make pictures that churches use, so so I have that ability, but I think that I'm always the original question was like how to be this person, and has that not fit well in certain church systems. I do think I'm allowed more to be like the kind of tempered or the emotional artist. In my own faith practice, though, like I was just in Munich, and I went to a bunch of art museums, and I came across this. This is a painting called a man of sorrows. And we know that referencing Jesus, but it's funny because it's like Jesus coming out of the grave and he's like got a crown on. It just has this face where he's just like, oh man. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot.
It's
And
a lot.
I like to get things. A lot of my souvenirs from traveling are from museums, but then I do stuff. So I just said, it's okay to be a man of sorrow. Jesus was.
That's
So it's
good.
okay if you are too.
That's good.
And
I
It's a
love
gift.
that.
I actually think that amidst all this American Christianity spiritual Prozac that we've lost, that our saints, that our writers, that our musicians, and that our artists were actually very grief-stricken people at the state of the world,
Yeah.
and that caused them to do something. And so I actually find a lot of hope and comfort in my own tradition. There, I mean, if once we get past the bookstore bullshit, I think you get into like, oh, there's a lot of. I mean, Ecclesiastes is a book in the middle of the whole thing, which is just like, I don't know, it all feels meaningless.
Totally.
Yes.
It's in there.
It's in there. It's
Yeah.
in there. So I don't feel like too off the path when
That's
in the
good.
middle of my life I'm like,
I
it
love
feels
that.
real meaningless.
If I might add, Jed, like the part of what we get to, and I wrote a thing this morning that the low is an invitation to reconsider the way we're living. It's kind of it can be a portal to there being more. And so we, in the show that we've been doing, we referenced Jim Carrey saying the low, depression is my body saying, fuck you, I don't want to play this character anymore. And I think that happens on a cultural level as well, which is to say, like, your disappointment, maybe I'm speaking to your guests or to your listeners, like your disappointment in the religious systems you've been a part of is a gift, and those systems need it.
That's good.
So take it personally, but there's also something really institutionally beautiful and necessary to whole swaths, thousands and thousands of people sharing the same set of disappointments.
You're right. That's really
Follow that
helpful.
thread. Follow that thread. Like, because that's coming from a place in your soul that knows there's something better and something richer and something deeper that this little container we've made for it, this little machine can't contain.
Super hopeful perspective.
Yeah.
I'm trying, goddamn.
What else can we do?
I don't have not much.
Scott, your artwork has walked people through so many seasons, grief, doubt. Last time you were on, I think I told you all your artwork is on our like family therapist walls, like the lighthouse, the full range of human experiences. Your art has walked us through that, and now depression, and a lot of your old work is in this book, but a different color. Everything's blue now, and coupled with the prayers and the poems. What surprised you about how people are responding to your work tied specifically to the low?
Yeah.
I got a message from a mother whose 17-year-old daughter is going through a real difficult time. And she sent me a picture of this book, and it was like completely tabbed, all just these different colored tabs and stuff.
Wow.
And she's like, I don't always know how to like help my daughter, but what we've been doing is she'll like look through and be able to go this one. And then we can just sit and we can talk about this one, this image and this prayer. And that helps kind of bring a conversation about of what we're thinking. And I'm not saying this because I just want to have a job, but I do think one of the one of the wonderful things that art allows us to do is it allows us to it's difficult at times to go, how are you really? And have the language. But if we can look at something or listen to something and go, that represents how I feel in the world or my thoughts. And then that allows us to just kind of exhume or excavate that. And because often we don't even know where to start with expressing ourselves. So to have, it's like what you were saying about being in the woods and just catching, like, what is the one that catches you, and then spending time with it. Like, and I think that what is catching your attention is what you should spend time with. And I love going to art museums and art galleries and stuff, but I'm not a fun hang. I am a fun hang, but meaning like I'm not slow. I like kind of, there's a lot to see and I'm like, no, oh, that one. And then I will spend a long time
You
with the
go to what
one that,
grabs you.
yeah. And I think that's when I'm talking to people about prayer or their spiritual life, I usually start and be like, what's your favorite song right now?
That's
Like
great. I love
what is the
that.
thing you're already singing over and over again? Because
Yeah.
that, even if it's a Sabrina Carpenter song, which great, you know, or even if it's something that you like, that's a pop song. It's like, it's still pointing to something in you that is you're working through and you're using that art for.
right.
And so for me, I still think I'm always trying to heal that being a visual artist, growing up in Protestant and not knowing where I fit in the world. Cue Michael W. Smith song. But I like
Sure.
have
Deep cut. Deep cut.
I have this. Well, I went to that concert.
Yes.
I'm always like anything in life. I'm just like, well, what's an image that would be helpful? That is where I start for something that's helpful for
great.
me, and then what I think we're saying is like that's helpful to a lot of other people too.
God, it really is. It's so funny
it's not
because
siloed on its own. It's in relationship to our words and music and all that kind of stuff.
But it's a gift because I'm a words person, obviously. Like I'm a brain person. So I'm a thinker and an analyst, and I'm moved by like data and research. Like I'm a kind of an academic processor.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting what art can do for me. It jars me out of these like rigid grooves that I have worn into my brain to how to process the world, my feelings, information. And art comes in like, hey, looky over here. And all of a sudden I am in a different place than I can like naturally get myself, even if that's not my first reach. Like art grabs the rest of us too and goes, here is a gentle side door into some of these feelings that you really need to work through, instead of just head on crash like I normally do with my thoughts. And so I am grateful. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, and oh, sorry, Amy, I didn't mean to interrupt. Oh, I was just at this the art museum in Portland, and there's a Kehinde Wiley. He's the guy who did the Obama portrait, but he does all of these amazing portraits of Black bodies, Black culture, but in places of kind of Eurocentric Renaissance style painting. So he's kind of putting places of power. It's his great career and amazing art. His paintings are so complex and they're so detailed. And I was sitting there going, I'm never going to be great like Kehinde Wiley. But then I was like, but I also don't want to spend 150 hours on a painting.
Yeah.
Because I want to spend 150 hours on like making a show or making a other thing. And the book, there's great illustrations, but they're intentionally simple.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm all for complexity in visual arts and complexity in craftsmanship, but like that can become the focus. That can also become like in the way. If you got something and it was so detailed and so layered and it was in this book format, it would be like, I don't even know where to start.
Totally.
And so the imagery is like intentionally simplified as much as it possibly can be to give as much, but also to go, I think I'm much more of a designer that way of like, if you thought about a logo, it's like, how do you tell the biggest story in the simplest shapes?
Yep.
And so then the imagery is that same kind of process. So a lot of things started more complex and then it was like, make it simple, make it simple, make it.
We really wanted to center the reader, and we've been doing that for 3 books. Is like, like we even wrote in the very, very first book is like, this is not content. This is a tool. The real content is what goes on in you while you read a book.
Yeah.
Like that's the actual content. That's the thing that matters. And part of the magic of what Scott's been doing for a long time is like people feel not so much like seen, but they really feel centered by his work. That this is, I don't have to like spend a bunch of time and learn a bunch of history. Like I can get into this image. And like it's clearly stirring things in me. And the reader, the viewer is centered instead of the book being centered, which I
great.
love.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
About Jen saying she gets in her head. This picture, which I don't know if you can see, of the just looking at your phone, looking at your phone, looking at your phone, and then looking up at the sun.
Yeah.
I was spiraling last week, like thinking the more news I consumed, the more I could understand things. And then I picked up your book and I saw this and was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I have to stop. And then I've listened to Sturgill Simpson for 3 days straight and like would not let myself even listen to another artist because I needed to just, you know,
He's a magician.
I needed to turn the volume down.
Good.
Anyway, the book ends with a plea of please stay. Before you go, please stay. It's a beautiful benediction and way to end the book. Can you tell us about why you chose to end there and the story about the first hotline?
We wanted to, I mean, outside of losing my father, like the numbers of people I've lost to suicide, I'm going to get choked up thinking about it. Like, meeting people in these places as best we can, like it's a gift. It's also, it comes with like you'd use the word tender earlier, like approaching the topic of suicide, like trying to do it professionally, also taking it really personally. They're like, I know this is like, there are images and poems in here that like I've needed in moments where I was like, gosh, what is like, how do I live here? And really, like, I wanted there to be a personal plea at the tail end that says like, listen, here's the history that I'm aware of, that someone looked up and recognized these horrible things happening culturally to folks who are having these experiences, and he made something. He was like, I've got to do something. Here's what I can make. And so he developed a hotline. And this is Scott and I saying like, these are things we've experienced. This is the terrible narrative we're getting from the world around us. And here's the thing that we made. And we didn't just make it because we needed it, which is true. That's why we started it. But we like got it published through a publisher. Interesting decision. We got it published through a publisher, and we did this and put it in the world because we want you to feel not only you're not alone, but there really is actually something good, deep, true, beautiful, and rich in you that this low is actually asking you to pursue. And the tragedy of losing some of the people that I've lost to suicide is like, hey, you weren't wrong. You weren't wrong to feel the things you were feeling. You're spot on. Like, life is hard. The machinery is beating the snot out of you. Stay long enough. Please stay long enough to like see what might be down there and learn to breathe at that. My favorite prayer in the book is exactly that. Like, my hope is not just that I rise to the surface, although I do hope that. My hope is that I learn to breathe at this depth.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to end with a plea. This is not just a tool to make you feel better. Really want you to learn to live there so that you can live wholly and stay long enough to see how deep, rich, and good your life truly is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I wrote the last the last prayer right before the please stay, which is saying please stay, and it was my own. It was a prayer to myself, really, because I know that it's not uncommon, it's not unusual for me to have days where I don't want to be around, and I have some very robust practices on that now because I've had to create those. But one of the things is like reminding myself that even in this moment, there's a future moment where I could look back on this moment and be like, I'm glad I stuck with it. And it's just kind of reminding myself that like I've had those moments in my life. And in this moment, even though I don't have the real faculties to like pick myself up, I can at least go, you've been here before and you were glad that you went through it. And so you're glad you stayed. And you actually don't know what kind of ability this will give you in a future sense. And so it's just kind of like, you just don't know the paths that your life are going to go on. So just like, don't give up on it now when you just don't like today, and that was kind of the thing I was writing to myself and reminding. And then the image with that is like carrying this sapling up a mountain. Yeah. And then and it's growing as you're doing the hard work, as you're climbing this difficult mountain of life, and then you're eventually sitting under the shade of its branches, and
I love that piece.
and going, the perseverance
That's right.
will lead to something that you'll get to enjoy and you'll give to others. So
right.
just please stay, keep going.
You
Yeah.
guys, it's beautiful. And I can't
Tom.
think of a single person who would not be deeply served by it. So
Yeah.
whether or not
That's
a
what
reader
we're hoping. Yeah.
that's just from your mouth to their click and buy finger. Even
Yeah.
if someone listening is thinking, I don't know that I would label myself depressed, or that I would say, it doesn't matter. This is a companion for hard. And we all have that. Everyone has a low.
Yep.
And so it's just especially right now, it's so salient and really important. Every day is a low right now. Every
Yes.
day it is relentless and overwhelming and overstimulating and scary. And
Yes.
half the time we are like, what in the hell are we supposed to do just to get to the end of a day? And so this to me feels like the right time to put this into the hands of people who feel like their faith has also been hijacked and want to find comfort and meaning and hope, that they'll be able to carry that seed and one day sit under its branches. And so thank you for the beautiful collaborative effort that it is to bring a book out into the world with two different brains creating it. That is not an easy task. To find that, but you guys have developed such a beautiful partnership, and I'm so excited to see what else you do and what other assignments just rise up to meet you, that you accept, and we're very grateful. And so I know this is obvious because people they have the Google, but should the people also want to know, where else can I find the both of you and the other stuff you've done and all of that, what would you say to the people?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, you go.
I'm most active on social media, on Instagram, and then Substack, and then and I'm Scott the Painter on both of those. So Scott the Painter. There's a lot of Scott Ericksons, so Scott the Painter's usually. Although there's a guy in Florida who paints houses, and he's Scott the Painter.
Of course.
That's 100% real. It's 100%
Somebody
real.
sent me a picture of his van. I know
No, that's so dumb. Oh my gosh.
And right now, so posting stuff there. Justin and I are doing these shows as, we have those coming out, and I'm speaking at things, he's speaking at things.
Yeah.
So, just if you're connecting on the webs, then that'll lead to in-person connections, which is the best thing.
Best.
But yeah.
I live in Martinez, California. I'm out here a lot. I go to Rooted Coffee in Walnut Creek. You can find me there pretty often.
Nice.
And then, but yeah, if you just go to justinmcroberts.com, everything kind of springs out from there.
Perfect. We're going to round all that up. Everybody listening, we'll put that in one spot for you, so you don't have to hunt down. But guys, it's just a delight to see the both of you. You're always welcome on this show. We're always happy to have you. And thank you for serving our listeners for sure, but also us. Just two girls sitting here being moved by your words and your art, and feeling some hope in what feels like a low moment. And so
that means a lot, Jen. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. It's hard for us to kind of explain what you're going to experience in the low. Go look at it. Look at the pages. You'll kind of see how it's laid out, how you move through the book. We barely scratched the surface. Over at jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, first of all, we'll have this whole episode for you, and then all of the links that the guys were talking about, to their socials and then to their previous work. But also we'll send you a link for In the Low, and you can pull it up and have a look at it. And I think you might realize, oh my gosh, this might really serve me. I think this would really be a companion right now in this moment, in this season of life. And like they said earlier, there is like clinical depression, that's chemical in your brain. And then there's a lot of like situational environmental depression. And I think that's where so many of us could find ourselves located right now. So also, when you're over at jenhatmaker.com on the podcast page, you can leave a message for us. There's a send voicemail button, and you just click it and literally just speak to us a minute or two and tell us whatever you want to tell us. What you heard in this episode, maybe, or what you're grateful for, what you're still asking, what you're learning, what you are personally experiencing. You may know that first of all, we listen to all of those. So thank you for everyone who ever submits a message to us. But we round those up and do listener submitted episodes where we play some of your messages online and talk through what it is we heard you say. And so you may end up on a show. Anyway, you guys, we're really glad you're here. We're pulling for you. We are in this together. We feel deeply committed to a better story and learning to find hope and goodness and love and grace even in the low. So we're glad that you're here, and we'll see you next week.